ready now.
Yay! Welcome back. Episode
Welcome
40
back. Wow,
of
a nice
Girls
even
Gone.
number.
With our favorite
Feeling
number in it,
spooky.
kind of.
4?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
nice.
14, but I
Unlucky.
mean 14 is
Oh,
14 is better, but we'll
yeah.
go with 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um
14.
we're a little biased because both of our birthdays are on the 14th. Um
Yay.
Just a quick little aside. Can
Yes.
we talk about the fact that Hocus Pocus 2 is coming
Oh my
out
god.
this year?
Yay! I'm so excited.
I'm
September
so
30th,
excited.
right?
Yes, and it
Yeah,
looks so good.
it does.
It
Yeah,
looks so, I was so worried that they were gonna just botch it, but it
mm-hmm.
looks so good.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I'm so excited. And the
I'm so
Sanderson
excited.
sisters, they all look the same, pretty
I
much.
know. I don't know how. Like, I think
They're
Kathy Najimy
witches.
looks the best of all
Yeah.
of them. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like kind of like the not cute one in the
Yeah.
original, but she's
Right.
aged really
Yeah.
well.
Uh-huh.
Oh
She
my God.
has.
I know.
Oh, I can't wait.
I cannot wait. Um, I wonder too, like if any of the original like kids will come back. Or like
Oh, yeah.
Billy, I don't know, like
Uh-huh.
if people are gonna
Oh,
be like,
yeah.
you've been through this before, come back and help us. Oh my God. I
I can't wait
saw
to
it.
find out.
I saw it in my Instagram feed and I nearly projectile vomited. Like I was just like so excited. I could
Uh-huh.
hardly contain myself. So I will be watching Hocus Pocus basically weekly until September
Right.
30th.
Yep. I know.
Me and my
And
cat
then
Binks.
now you have 2 Hocus Pocus movies to have in the rotation
Right?
because I watch it like 6 times every Halloween. So now I have
Yeah,
another
same.
one to add.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
And
so
now I can
exciting.
watch 2 year round.
Yeah, amazing.
Great. So obviously I'm a psycho fan for this movie franchise.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, just had to throw that in there. Okay, I'm so excited for this week's topic.
Woohoo.
And I wanted to, so I think we kind of teased it last week, but it's basically like skeptics turned believers, like what
Mhm.
made you believe in the paranormal after being skeptical. And I
Mhm.
figured it would be a nice way to start by sharing what we think
Oh,
and
like
why.
what
Like,
changed our perception
or just
or
generally, like, on the scale of like full-fledged believer to skeptic, like, where do you fall?
oh, full-fledged believer. Absolutely.
Okay,
Like,
same.
there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. For me, I
I
feel like it's like I I like to think that most things can be explained logically,
Mhm.
but there are just some things we can't. And
Yes.
I was having a discussion about this with my uncle, who is a science teacher and also atheist. You know, he's like very much
Yeah.
like, if there's no scientific evidence, if it cannot be proven, I don't believe it.
Hmm.
Which I respect that position. And I also think that there's some things it's like, well, we don't have evidence that it's not real either.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to default to disbelief when it's fun to believe. And we don't
Right.
know. We can't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, okay, now that we've
Yeah.
cleared that up for anyone who's
Yeah.
questioning.
And I totally get it when people who haven't had any experiences
Yeah,
don't believe in it because I
yeah,
do think until when it happens to you, then it's like, okay, I know
yeah,
that I'm not making this up. I
right.
know what I felt and what I saw. And then it's
Yeah,
way easier to believe in it than
yeah,
if nothing has ever happened to you.
totally.
So,
Well, and I think for my uncle, like he mentioned that he's had some stuff happen to him that he can't explain.
mhm.
But he's like, but that doesn't mean it can't be explained. It's just that I
Oh,
can't explain it.
right.
So it's like,
Hmm.
okay,
Okay.
yes. And
Uh-huh.
also,
Yeah.
I reject
Uh-huh.
that stance.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh. Same.
so I wanted to start before we jump into the stories. I found a couple like articles that are actual like parapsychology studies and also just like discussions around parapsychology and like what people believe. So wanted to just open with a couple of kind of interesting things.
Okay.
So over a third of the population in the US, and this is as of 2015, according to a Gallup poll, believe in extrasensory perception or ESP. So
Hmm.
this was specifically talking about like any kind of like clairvoyance or psychic, whatever, what's that called? Psychistry? What is that?
Psychic,
Psychicness?
psychic,
Ability?
psychicosity.
Psychicos- Psychicosity.
I
Exactly.
don't know.
So it's all kind of lumped into this like ESP bucket.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of different hypotheses and the as to like why some people scientifically may be more prone to be skeptical versus more believing. And a lot of it comes down to this hypothesis called the cognitive differences hypothesis, where it's basically like individual differences in the way people process information about the world can contribute to the creation of psychic beliefs. So memory accuracy is one. So a good example of this is like selectively remembering a fortune teller's correct predictions over their incorrect
Hmm.
ones. Analytical thinking, for example, relying on intuition rather than scrutinizing evidence. But it's interesting because in this article that I'm getting all of this from, it's really mixed. Like they did a full fledged, like big scale, large scale study with like three different categories where they tested all these different characteristics in people, and it's like a total crapshoot basically as to like who believes what and why. um but going back to the original poll, and again back to 2015, the psychic phenomena, like if you break that down, so ESP is 42%, telepathy is 31%, and clairvoyance is 26%, and that's like people who believe
Hmm.
it. While
Hmm.
obviously others think of it as being either illogical or not scientific. Um,
Interesting.
and they, of course, go into like the methodology of the study. And I thought it was just so interesting. There's like a ton of detail in this paper. But one of the things that they used was the psychic beliefs questionnaire is what they kind of labeled it, and it's the Australian sheep goat scale, or the ASGS, which is literally a questionnaire to measure paranormal psychic belief or skepticism.
Huh. Interesting.
I was like, what?
I've
So it's
never heard of that.
16, me neither. It's 16 true or false questions that measure one's belief in various psychic phenomena and is highly reliable. It contains three categories of items: belief in ESP, which is the ability to predict the future; psychokinesis, the ability to move objects using the power of one's mind. Shout out 11 from Stranger Things; and telepathy, the ability to read another's thoughts or feelings. So
Wow. Interesting.
interesting. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to like include that because I just thought it was fascinating that there are literally people
Yeah.
who've dedicated like there's a whole school of study around like
Right.
not just are these things real, but why do some people believe they are where others don't. Um, so there was that. And then, oh, actually, let me go back really quickly. So, this, if anyone's interested in looking into this, the paper is called Paranormal Psychic Believers and Skeptics, a large scale test of the cognitive differences hypothesis. And it was written by
Hmm.
Stephen J. Gray and David A. Gallo. So, if anyone wanted to read through it, you can find it easily if you just search that. Um, and then
Cool.
the other thing was talking about this is an article called Longtime Skeptic Now Accepts Parapsychology as Science, and it's talking about
Hmm.
this University of London psychology professor named Chris French, who for years and years and years was like parapsychology is not a science, and basically he's come to a new approach to view that the question of whether it is, and it's like, well, how do we decide what is and isn't science? So it's just kind of interesting because I think like if we talk about science versus like pseudoscience, that obviously has a
Hmm.
totally different um, connotation to it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. So the way he, like his current view, there's a quote here that says, on his current view, one can assume that if a researcher studying extrasensory perception, ESP, follows strict agreed on guidelines, the research can't simply be ruled out of bounds if it does come up with evidence for ESP. So it's like,
Hmm.
well, if you debunked it, it'd be science, but because your research done according to the agreed standards supports it, therefore it's pseudoscience. So it's like we have
Hmm.
this basically like prejudice against anything that actually does kind of prove these things to be real. Um,
Hmm.
which just goes back to the idea that like foundationally a lot of people are super skeptical.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was just kind of interesting. Hopefully that's interesting to everybody else too. But
Yeah,
just
definitely.
I don't know, like how, like, why is it that we believe in this stuff? And like my uncle
Mhm.
is like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. That is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Because I should have written this down, but there I came across something. I think it was called the Philip experiment,
Mm.
and it was another like parapsychology, I guess, study where the researchers made up like an entity and
Hmm.
tried to or maybe tried to see if their research subjects would end
Mm.
up like feeling this presence or something.
Yeah.
I don't have this written down, so I'm probably explaining it wrong, but
Mm.
it was something similar along those lines of trying to see
Yeah.
how people would react to something and
Interesting.
being like suggesting that there was some
Yeah.
person that haunted this
Yeah.
place or whatever it was.
Like
It's
breadcrumbing a little bit. Interesting.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. See,
Mhm.
that said though, like as someone who is, and you can probably speak to this with like just recently visiting the Stanley Hotel, if I've been in plenty of places that are said to be haunted and have felt absolutely nothing, like
Mhm.
nothing, not like, oh, I'm being watched, like I like none of
Yeah.
that. Like, oh, it's
Mhm.
chilly in here. I'm like, yeah, it's chilly everywhere in here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I think, I don't know, I am a full-fledged believer, but at the same time, it doesn't feel to me like the power of suggestion. And of course, I'm
Mhm.
biased because this is my
Yeah.
own analysis of my own perspective. But
Mhm.
like, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it is interesting. And people always talk about how if you're open to it, then it comes to you. But I don't think when it first started happening to me, I wasn't like inviting ghosts to come into my
No, of
life.
course not.
It comes at random. I don't know. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah, and
interesting.
it catches you off guard a lot of the time,
Mhm.
which I think
Definitely.
is telling, you know.
Mhm. Yes, definitely.
So, with that,
Ooh.
so we're going to format this a little bit differently today. I don't know if we have the same number of stories, but we're just going to kind of go back and forth
Yeah.
and share
See what
and
happens.
yeah, see what happens. Um, so I will kick us off.
Yes.
So this is pulled from Reddit from 2019 from user Old Man Enoch. So Old Man Enoch says, I worked at a public pool and would work alone after hours cleaning the building and the pool once it closed. One night around 2 a.m., I was cleaning the changing rooms, and the pool had been closed for 4 hours at this time, so it closed around 10 p.m. I suddenly hear the sound of a child's laughter and bare feet running across the pool deck, so I go out and scan the area, but there's no one in sight. The doors are all closed and locked, and there is nowhere a kid could be hiding. There are no wet footprints on the deck, so I recheck the doors and the security monitors, and there was absolutely no one there with me.
Ugh, creepy.
Creepy. Your turn.
So creepy. Okay, let me see if I
Oh,
have one that kind of matches that.
yeah.
I guess not really, so I'll just go with this one. That is from, I think this was from Reddit, and it's El Gran Sancho 4
Ooh.
is the username. So as a kid, my best friend's younger brother claimed he had an imaginary best friend, and he would often be playing and talking to this friend. We would make fun of him in light, but still thought it was odd. My father, on a couple of occasions when visiting this friend in their home, claimed he would see a shadow running from room to room.
Oh.
Yeah. Long story short, long story short, a family member ended up buying the home and is currently living there. Last year for Christmas, we gathered and ended up talking about the odd occurrences that were going on in the house. I told my story of how my best friend's little brother and his alleged friend, and to my surprise, the current homeowners said that they too have seen a quote, kid, and that on two occasions they've had their neighbors ask why they leave their child alone. They have no kids.
Oh, oh, full goosebumps.
Creepy! I
The
know.
neighbors asking, I hate
Yeah.
that. I hate that. I hate that. I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like you can see it from the outside is a
Bleh.
creepy thought.
Bleh. Nope, don't like
Yeah.
that at all. Do not
No.
like that.
Nope. Yikes.
Okay. This one is from Long Face Pug on
Love
Reddit.
it.
All of these are from the same source, so it's all from 2019. Um, my girlfriend's grandfather's ashes were on a little shelf in the living room, right next to a very solid and heavy angel statue. One weekend, she and I are fooling around on the living room couch, and out of the corner of my eye, I see the angel statue fly off the wall, accompanied with a deep grunt. Now, when I say this thing flew off the wall, I'm talking 7 to 8 feet of air before landing on the hardwood and leaving a dent where the wing hit. Even if this thing had fallen off the wall on its own, it would have dropped straight down, not soared across the room 7 or 8 feet. So we both stopped and stood there in shock, and I whispered and asked her if she had heard the grunt as well, to which she agreed. So we both booked it. They left for the day. That night at dinner, we told her parents what had happened, leaving out the naughty part that they were fooling around. And the girlfriend's younger sister burst into tears, saying that she had seen a dark figure at the foot of her bed the last couple nights, but didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. The grandfather that died had mental health issues that caused a lot of pain. So there was a lot of, just like, I guess,
Hmm. It's
stigma
hard.
around that.
Yeah.
But after that day, I was a believer. It's like he didn't want them hooking up in the
Whoa.
family home.
It's kind of funny, but still
So
so
funny, but also
creepy.
so creepy. Well, and
Oh.
him staring at the edge of her bed, like I don't
Hmm.
like
That's a
that.
nightmare.
Come on, Grandpa, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Don't do
even if
that.
it's a like loving family member, I still don't want you staring at me when
Watch me
I'm
sleep.
sleeping.
Yeah, don't watch me
Yeah.
sleep.
I could
Thanks.
do
Thank
without
you.
that. Yeah. Mm. Okay, next one. So this is from Cubic Ant. And they say, I've written about this before, but once while falling asleep after a movie with the family, I was awoken by what seemed like a small boy running toward the couch we were on. I immediately sat up and braced for impact. Now, I would normally chalk this up to falling asleep, but my mom and dad also bolted awake at the exact same time. Before I could explain, my dad told me he saw a boy running toward us. His description of the boy matched mine, while my mother confirmed as well.
Oh, I don't like that.
Like running at you? That's so creepy.
No, and like multiple witnesses, those are the ones
Mm-hmm.
that really freak me out. It's like, was
Yeah,
there actually a kid in this house? Like, what's happening?
right. Yeah, a shared experience. That's always
Yeah.
adds to it.
Um, okay, this one is from Gabe Rax. And just a quick content warning, there is reference to murder in this, so
Okay.
violence warning. When I was in my late 20s, I was dating my girlfriend, soon to be wife, and we had been together for a while at this point. One summer, it was July 3rd, her sister was abducted and killed by a group of 6 men. All of the men were eventually caught and tried. The trials and the aftermath for the family were devastating and debilitating for them for many, many years, as I'm sure we all can imagine. Fast forward 3 months after the funeral, I arrived at my girlfriend's house to wait for her to get off from her job as a nurse at a local hospital. Neither of her parents were home, just me alone in the house. So I went into the family room, turned on the TV, and sat down on the couch, got comfortable, started watching TV. Clear as a bell, I heard my girlfriend's sister's voice in my right ear, just off my shoulder, call my name. I turned to look at the seat next to me, and of course there was nobody there. I stared at the spot on the couch next to me for a long while, feeling a bit easy, turned off the TV, went outside to wait on the porch. So he just was like, he
Yeah.
heard her voice, which is just
Mhm.
so bizarro.
Yeah. Extremely.
I wish there was more to the story than that, but like that on its own, like after such a violent death, like
Mhm.
to me that's almost like I don't know. They clearly hadn't been they'd been together for a while, but they weren't married. So maybe it was her way of
Mhm.
saying like I approve kind of. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Or
I
like to
know.
be there for the sister, you know? I don't know. It's
Right.
sad.
Something. It is sad. Yeah. I can't imagine hearing a loved one's voice after they've passed out of
No,
nowhere.
not
Like
at
kind of
all.
nice, kind of
Yeah.
upsetting.
Yeah. A little definitely like that would make me very uneasy, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Let's continue with another. Let's do a shared experience one again.
Ooh, yeah.
So, this is that threesome from Reddit. And when I was about 10 to 14, I had terrible insomnia. I would imagine things and felt incredibly unsafe, as though I was being watched, although I never admitted this to anyone. I began only sleeping on the couch, excuse me, with my back against the wall and had to have the TV or some sort of light on. I missed an immense amount of school because of this, so my mom had me see a neurologist. The neurologist diagnosed me with some things, but the crazy part was during my sleep study, I slept amazingly well, no issues at all, and slept in a quote, real bed.
What?
Eventually, I got transferred to a children's hospital, and speaking to the doctor, I explained that I would see things and felt uncomfortable. They had thought I was experiencing sleep paralysis. When they told my mom, she went ghost white. She pulled me aside and explained she was experiencing things too. She described in detail what I was seeing. That evening, she approached my brother and asked broad questions like, "Do you have anything weird happen in our house?" etc. He described the same thing. It was then I realized we must have paranormal activity, and I've believed in it ever since. When we moved out of that house, all of my sleep issues abruptly stopped, and I haven't experienced it since.
Ew!
Yikes!
Ew!
Yeah, something in the night.
I mean, thankfully they moved, you know? Like,
Yeah,
imagine if they
right.
just stayed there, that thing had haunted her for forever.
Yeah, didn't sleep for like years on end.
Literally, that'd be an actual
Yeah.
literal nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oof, creepy.
okay, this one is from Young Greasy, which is just an excellent,
Uh-huh.
excellent name.
Love
Um,
it.
so I was always on the fence about ghosts because there's no scientific evidence of them being real, and at the time was going through a big questioning phase with religion and the afterlife. My family moved into an old farmhouse when I was 12, and this was a very old farmhouse with a build date around the Civil War. The original owner's name was still on the old barn out back, and we found numerous old antiques built into the walls when we completely renovated the place. That said, a few odd things happened after we first moved in, but distinct things started happening to me specifically after I turned 16, but never to my sister until after she turned 16 too.
That's so
So don't.
weird.
So the most prominent memory I have, the upstairs consisted of two bedrooms. One bedroom was the room at the top of the stairs. The second bedroom was in a separate room just to the left of the top of the stairs. I had the quote private room, and my sister's room was the landing space. When someone walked up the stairs, it was very obvious. You could hear each individual step, and the creaks got louder as the person approaching the top got closer. So one night, I'm sitting on my bed watching TV or something, and I hear my sister come up the steps and go and lay on her bed. So I start talking to her. But when she doesn't answer me, I get kind of annoyed and go into her room to see what her problem is, only she's not there. Also, like typical sibling, like, what's your problem?
Yeah. Getting angry.
Right. Only she is not there, and my mind was blown because I am certain I heard her. I call for her, and she had been downstairs the entire time,
Oof.
which is so creepy.
Yeah.
We never actually felt threatened, but it did seem like this entity liked picking only on women. Even my mother, who absolutely does not believe in ghosts and had to admit some very odd things happened to her. I think the
Hmm.
funniest thing that happened was probably having my ponytail pulled while I was doing the dishes. I don't know why it was
Ugh.
so funny. It just cracked me up that whatever it was felt like playing with my hair to mess with me.
Ugh, I would
Which
hate
actually
that.
is like kind of cute, but yeah, I would hate that too. No,
If
thank
somebody
you.
yeah, exactly. I know it was
That's a
bad
no
enough
thank you
on
moment
the
for sure.
back of my lab coat,
Yeah,
but
no
the
thanks.
hair, no thank you.
No thank you.
Wow. Spooky.
Spooky.
Um, okay. Let's see. Another family one. So this is from Scrody the Roadie. It's funny. um, so their story. Oh, and maybe content warning. Let me see if this is the right
Mm,
one. Um, I thought there was mention of miscarriage in here. I don't know.
okay.
But yeah. Anyway, even if it's not in there, still warning. So,
Yes.
okay. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time. First instance I remember was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I called my grandmother, who passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young, and so I hadn't even talked about Nana to her. So I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no
Mm,
biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch and puts her head on her belly and says, Mommy, there's a baby in there.
oh.
Okay, maybe that's coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on our sadness, who knows, but she again puts her head on her stomach and says, Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore.
Oh.
Yeah. Then, several months and one more very early miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, I was talking to my brother last night and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon.
What?
Again, she's an only child and had no living question mark brother. We were still trying at this point but had not taken any tests. We picked one up that night and sure enough, pregnant. When the time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl. Sure enough, I have
Whoa.
2 daughters. Pretty
Oh my
cool.
God.
Yeah, that little
I
girl
love
is
that one.
tapped in somewhere.
Tapped in. I love it.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Okay. This one is from Mrs. Mellowcake. I'm still not sure if I believe 100%, but there have been some weird things in my life that I can't quite explain. For example, when I was 5 years old, I woke up in the night and my grandma was standing at the end of my bed wearing a teal blue skirt and a matching blouse. I remember that it was summer and the sky was still light, but not light enough for me to read, so I guess it was about 9 p.m. I sat up and she put her finger to her lips, like to shush her, I guess. So I rubbed my eyes a couple of times because I was sleepy, but when I opened my eyes again, she was gone. I snuggled back under my covers, thinking how nice it was to see her because I hadn't seen her for ages, and I hoped she would still be there when I woke up. The next morning, my house was eerily quiet, and my mom was in a worse mood than normal, but she had been crying, so I asked her what was wrong. My grandma had died the night before. She'd been crossing
Oh.
a road after her bingo turned out at 8:30, about 60 miles away
Mm.
from where we lived, and she had a massive brain hemorrhage in the middle of the road and didn't make it to the other side. And of course, meaning she didn't make it 60 miles to the house. So
Mhm.
something real weird happened there, but she
Wow.
came to say goodbye, which is so sweet.
Yeah. Oh,
I
that is
like that
sweet.
one.
Wow.
Yeah,
Crazy stuff.
crazy stuff.
Okay, let's see. What's next? I have 2 that are really short and kind
Hmm.
of lacking in detail. But I thought they were still cool. So this one is
Mm-hmm.
from Luco Zaid 6, and it's like two
Mm-hmm.
sentences. So he says, I saw a reflection of myself at the end of a hallway in my friend's apartment building. Only he told me the day after that there was never any mirror in the hallway. Still don't understand to this day. I
Oh,
don't know if that's ghosty or more doppelganger kind of deal, but that.
I don't like that though. That's for
Mm-mm.
sure.
No, absolutely not.
Oh.
And then maybe I'll just read this other really quick one
Yeah.
because it doesn't have much detail. And their username or their account was deleted, so I don't have the
Oh.
username. But they say, I work with the, what is this, crime unit. And
Oh.
one time I was at a murder scene and had a shared death experience. It was creepy, but also comforting to know that there is something after death. Basically, when I was examining a crime scene, I collapsed. And when
Hmm.
I did, I felt like I went to heaven with the victim.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then somebody commented and asked, what was it like? And he or she said, it was just like a house with all of my relatives and friends that had passed. And then I could see myself collapse and I woke up in a hospital. So it was like he or she was having an out of body
That's
experience.
so
Like,
weird.
yeah, I don't know. I wish there was more about that one, and the grammar is not good. So hopefully I'm interpreting that well, but yikes.
What the?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that.
Mm-mm.
Okay, this is the last one from this like Reddit source. This is
Okay.
from Daily Donut 16, which like love
Hmm.
that energy.
Yep.
Um, so most of my family is extremely religious and believe in ghosts wholeheartedly. Most of them claim to have seen something paranormal at some point in their lives. I wasn't very religious, and I always thought to myself, if I haven't seen it, then it's not real. However, that changed during my senior year in high school. I was dog sitting at my great aunt's house while she was out of town for a few days. A little after midnight, I was watching a movie and my aunt's dog started barking like crazy, running up the stairs at full speed. The dog was small but fierce. Suddenly, I clear as day hear a gravelly voice at the top of the stairs say, "Bad doggy." The voice was deep
That's
and masculine. I went upstairs because I was certain nobody else was supposed to be there. I looked around and there was nobody in sight. The dog was still barking at something that I couldn't see. She was just barking at an empty hallway. That's when I
mm.
heard footsteps walking away from us down the hall and into my aunt's bedroom. I could hear the footsteps, but I couldn't see anyone making them. This is funny.
I hate that.
I noped the fuck out of that house with the dog and went outside in my car. The dog and I slept there for the night.
Hmm.
I'm not
I would have
entirely
done the
sure what
same.
yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I experienced that night, but I definitely believe in the paranormal now. I never told my aunt about what happened, but apparently my great uncle, her husband, had died in that house a few months after I was
Hmm.
born. I never knew him, but I'm willing to bet that it was him who I heard that night.
Wow. Interesting. Oh, the gravelly voice, though,
Creepy.
I don't.
I don't
That
like
creeps me
that.
out.
Yeah, that creeps me out
Mm-mm.
too, like a lot. I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Yikes.
No
And when the
likey.
dogs react, you know.
Mm-mm. That ain't it.
Yeah,
That ain't
exactly.
it.
Okay, I think I just have two more. So this one, they write, oh wait, their username is Bangkok D'Angelo Us 98.
Okay.
Don't know if I answered or read that right, but okay. So
Oh
they write,
god.
I grew up in a very scientific family. I never knew my dad's stance on ghosts, but they were never talked about, so it really didn't matter. One day when I was in high school, we were eating dinner, and I decided to ask my dad about our old house and moving into it when I was just a baby, so he told me a story. Apparently, when we moved into this house, we lived there about a week before we started to receive, quote, gifts once a week. Every Friday morning, my dad told me that there would be some sort of handcrafted gift sitting on the mantle of our fireplace. My dad was reasonably freaked out by this because we were the only ones with keys to the house, and the last owner had moved out of state. So he informed the local police, and they decided to patrol the property every Friday night. I assume they mean Thursday night,
Yeah.
looking for intruders. They found nothing, and as you can imagine, the gifts kept coming. So my dad told me they eventually gave up and, feeling helpless, went to our local church. Eventually, he had a priest come and bless the house, and we stopped receiving the gifts.
Whoa.
Yeah, they right. What really freaked me out about this was the fact that my dad never believed in ghosts and didn't mention once that a, quote, ghost was causing these gifts to appear. He's an
Mm.
engineer, so he always tries to debunk people's paranormal stories, excuse me, with a realistic explanation. But, wow, excuse me, he
You're
was
good.
100% serious with this story. One of the gifts we received, we actually still have, and it's a wooden sled with a small painting of a man, presumably my dad, pulling me and my sister on the sled.
What?
She says, my dad only told me this story once, and then he denied ever telling me when I asked him about it again recently. So who knows what's going
Hey.
on in that story?
Oh God. I don't
But
like it because he probably was just like, that's too freaky. I'm not
yeah,
confirming that I ever said
yeah.
that.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, did they like, they couldn't have made that all up if they were receiving weekly gifts or whatever, little crafts. I don't
Oh
know.
my
That
God.
reminds me of the Blair Witch Project, sort of like leaving those little things around. Is
Yeah,
that
a
movie?
hundred percent. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the teeth and the hair and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oof. Yikes.
Oh. Okay, so I have like one more that I'm gonna save for the very end, but I'm just gonna do a few since you only have, I think, one more after that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so I'll just do a few back to back. Um, so this is from Lol's PhD. I sort of believed in the paranormal, but never really had any experiences to justify that any of it was real until this happened. The day my brother died, my best friend came over and we sat on his bed in our basement and cried. This was on the brother's bed. Our basement
Mm.
was half finished, and the other half was storage, which was separated by these two heavy doors that were held in place with this friction spring ball thing and a wall. So basically, they were hard as hell to open. As we're
Mm.
sitting there crying, holding on to each other, I grabbed a picture of my brother and said, I can't believe you're gone. And the moment that sentence left my mouth, the two doors slammed open and I saw a shadow figure standing in the darkness. My friend started crying harder when that happened, and he just grabbed onto me for dear life. He and I rarely talk about it, but we both saw it and experienced it, and I'm absolutely a true believer now.
Wow. Amazing.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
um, so this one is from the same person, actually.
Mm.
And they say, I live up the street from my grandma and grandpa. My grandpa and I have an extremely strong connection. We get made fun of constantly for being so close. I was taking a midday nap, and all I remember was waking up screaming with my mom trying to calm me down. I don't remember what I was dreaming about, but my mom said she had never heard me scream like that in my life and was crying.
Mm.
About 10 seconds after I gained consciousness, my phone rang. It was my grandma telling me that my grandpa had fallen down, hit his head, and she
Mm.
couldn't get him up. He's actually
Oh
fine
no.
now and just has a bit of a goose egg on the back of his head. But I can only believe that something yanked me out of sleep so that I would be able to react to that moment,
Hmm.
which is
Wow.
so weird. Um,
Connections.
this one's from Mammoth Occasion. I used to be skeptical about anything paranormal until a couple months ago. I was at my friend's house. We were drinking and talking about life. I stayed up past the curfew. This happens after the mandatory lockdowns all around the world. So this is recent.
Mm.
And most countries had nighttime curfews in place. So I had to spend the night there. I stayed in the guest room and suddenly heard a loud bang on the wall behind me. I looked through the window and see nothing, and I was on the third floor. After that, I laid on the bed and tried to get some sleep, but every time that I was about to fall asleep, something or someone touched me, waking me up. but I
Hmm.
didn't really think much of it and so would try to fall asleep again. But suddenly I felt it again and again and again. And at the sixth or seventh time, something hit me so hard that I freaked out, grabbed my cell phone, and texted my friend. He didn't answer because he was asleep, so I just grabbed my stuff and went home. The
Hmm.
next morning, my friend told me that sometimes weird stuff happens in his house and that I was rather, quote, lucky since whatever is in the house likes to make his presence known. Since then, I've avoided going to this place, or if I go, I just stay outside in the yard.
Yikes. And the friend is just like, yeah, these things
Right, yeah.
happen.
Yeah, you're lucky he
Whatever.
didn't fuck you up. Like, please,
What a
come on.
nightmare.
I know.
Yikes.
So this one
Wow.
is from Magic Little Sausage. And there is a content warning here for suicide. I was a freshman in high school, and my mom and I had just moved into a new house. On days that I would be at home all day during the weekend, summer, or when I was just out sick, every single day at about 1 p.m., always the exact same time, there would be loud footsteps as if someone was running across the roof over my room. It was only over my room that they could be heard, and it was distinctly a human running across the roof on 2 feet. The footsteps would start from the corner of my room facing the rest of the house and end at the edge of the roof in front of the front yard. I told my mom about this after a few months, and she told me that the people who owned the house, because they were renting, told her that the previous owner was a postal worker who jumped off the roof and killed himself. Yeah. Another time in that same house, I heard clear as day the sound of a man clearing his throat coming from another room. This was well after midnight, and it was only my mom and I in the house.
Yikes.
Ooh.
So eerie.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then I'm gonna okay. Let's I'm trying to like decide which of these I want to actually share because there are just so many of them.
Yeah, there were a
Um,
lot.
okay. Um, this is from I drunkenly signed up, which is a hilarious username.
Uh-huh. It's
My mom
perfect.
likes to tell this story that when my older brother was a toddler, he would wake up in the middle of the night crying, "Monster, monster," and pointing at the closet.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate that. She would open the closet and there was nothing in there, and he would go back to sleep. One night, my brother kept waking up crying, "Monster, monster," over and over again. She says she was going to open the closet again, then she heard someone breathing inside the closet and then a loud bang on the door. She screamed at the door, "Get the fuck out of my house!" and opened it, ready to throw hands. But of course, it was empty. And my mom says it
Mm.
never happened again after
Hmm.
that.
No, thank you.
So scary.
Oh, that's kind
Um,
of like what you sent me from TikTok the other day
oh,
of
yeah.
the. We can just recap that one. There was a child, I think a toddler, maybe,
Hmm.
who was afraid to sleep in her room because
Hmm.
of a monster or whatever she was saying in the room.
Yeah.
And then she said that it was this monster was someone who looked exactly like her mom, who was trying to coax her to come into the
Oof.
closet with her. But this little girl was having the sensation of like, I really don't want to go into this closet with this
Yeah. And I
person. It's
know
not
you're not
actually
my
my
mom.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate
And
that.
and the
That's
mom
so
was like, and of course I've never asked her to go into the
yeah.
closet with me. Like I've
Right.
told her to get something from her closet, but I've never said
Yeah.
like come in here with me. Like how
Ugh.
fucking creepy.
Yeah, that's
Ooh.
right. Just leave my mom out of it, you know. That's
Yeah.
she's off limits.
Yeah, exactly. My mom is off limits. Um okay. This one is also from my drunkenly signed up. When I was very young, maybe 8 or 9, I was sitting in front of the fireplace while watching TV with my family. It was pouring outside, accompanied with, of course, thunder and lightning. And as one of the lightning strikes goes off, it lights up the backyard enough that I see the silhouette of someone standing at the glass door next to the
Ugh.
fireplace I was sitting next to. I immediately jumped up and ran to the couch where my mom and brother were sitting. And as soon as I got to the couch, the ceiling above the fireplace caved in.
Whoa.
We
Oh my
found out
god.
later there was a leak in the roof that had been accumulating in the ceiling until the drywall couldn't hold it up anymore, and there was no one in the backyard,
Ooh, weird.
which is like cool, right?
Yeah.
But
A warning.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow.
Yeah, creepy.
The
But also like kind of sweet. Okay, this is the
yeah.
last one, and then I'll kick it back to you before my final one.
Okay.
And this is from Kogra, Kogra 98. Um, I've held the mentality for ghosts and aliens of I'll believe it when I see it for my whole life. I've heard some really good evidence for years, but there's usually a way to fake some evidence and claims for all of them. So months ago till now, I am a believer. As of months ago,
Hmm.
I'm a believer. Not only that, but I have a witness who experienced the same thing. I've had a cat for 17 years of my life since I was a baby, and I'm 22 now. She was my best friend and guardian cat. And after she passed, my mother and I took some time to ourselves for a few months until we got a new kitten. Last year, though, things got odd. I'd gotten
Hmm.
used to having our cat around the house. Sometimes she'd even jump up on the bed with me for a few hours. I'd gotten used to heightening my senses and could tell where she was and what she wanted when she was on my bed. Having the left side of the bed facing a window made it easier to know if she wanted up there. It's a bit of a leap, but she tries to climb up anyway because the curtain gets in the way. As usual, I felt what seemed like four paws on the left side near my calves. Strange, I thought to myself. She usually jumps up to my bed, which makes a very distinct sound, but I didn't really think much of it. Looked over to see her probably wanting up to the window, but nothing was there. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I watched a video of someone playing Don't Open Your Eyes recently, and if it didn't fill my mind with creepy imagery, it did make me think of the mechanics of that game. If you don't see it, it stays there, is the
Hmm.
concept, which is a creepy thought. The
Yeah.
next night, or
Interesting.
maybe the night after, the same thing happened. Four distinct pressure points near my calves showed up. No warning or anything, so I waited. I knew something was there. Four distinct pressure points that indented my bed and blankets. I could feel it. No doubt there was something there. And then they just disappeared. I jumped up
Hmm.
and looked over to where it was, and there was nothing. So I slowly drifted off to sleep. A while later, I had said nothing to anyone about this, but my mom spoke up and described the exact same thing happening to her, saying it was my old guardian cat checking up on her. Of course, I spoke up and
Hmm.
told my tale, but I had no explanation for it. Only a month ago now, I realized that's it. I've had a ghost encounter. I have my story and I have a witness,
Hmm.
which is kind of
Wow.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ghost cat.
Ghost cat. I love it. Over to you.
Okay. This one is sweet. So I think it's a good
Yay.
second to last one. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
from Substantial Ad 7406. So they say my best friend died a couple years ago, and a week after his funeral, I was driving on a quiet highway in a snowstorm. An Erica Badu song came on that I used to sing for him all the time, and I broke
Mhm.
down crying while I was driving. I sang that song for him the day we met, and he asked me to never stop. I had never experienced grief like this before. I literally wanted to die sometimes, anything to make it stop hurting. I thought I would never feel companionship again, that I would be alone for the rest of my life without him. So I'm driving down the highway in the snow, feeling these feelings and crying. All of a sudden, it felt like somebody from my passenger seat slapped me in my face really hard, and the car in front of me had slammed on its brakes. I would have hit him at 70 miles per hour if I wasn't jolted out of the zone I was in. I pulled
Whoa.
over and froze. One thing to note about my friend is that he had the absolute best hugs. Almost everyone mentioned it during the memorial and still talk about it today. He was a big guy, so it literally felt like a giant teddy bear wrapping its arms around you with all of the love he has to give. While I was sitting there crying, it's difficult to describe. I felt this warmth all over, inside and out. It felt like I was being hugged by him. And in my head, I heard his voice telling me that I was being melodramatic and that I can't give up, reminding me that I'm capable of handling this. Slapping me to save my life and calling me stupid for wallowing is absolutely something he would do. I heard his voice in my head, but it was louder than a thought. It's hard to explain, but it was like I could really hear him. I love that one.
I
That's
love
so
that so
sweet.
much, and also it kind of breaks my heart.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's they were devastated, but it sounds like their best friend is still around.
Yeah, with them.
So,
Yeah, that is really
yeah,
sweet. Oh,
and saved their life too,
yeah,
potentially.
seriously. I love that.
Wow. Hmm.
Okay, mine is also very sweet. So this one's from Scientific American, and this is by Michael Shermer. He says, often I'm asked if I have ever encountered something that I could not explain. What my interlocutors, I'm saying that wrong. In,
Hmm.
where's the
I
emphasis
don't
on
know.
in that?
Inter.
Interlocutors?
That
Interlocutors?
sounds
Interlocutors?
close.
I don't know.
Close enough.
Oh God, losing my mind. What they have in my mind are not bewildering enigmas such as consciousness or U.S. foreign policy, but anomalous and mystifying events that suggest the existence of the paranormal or supernatural. My answer is yes. Now I have. The event took place on June 25, 2014. On that day, I married Jennifer Graf from Cologne, Germany. She had been raised by her mom, and her grandfather, Walter, was the closest father figure she had growing up, but he died when she was 16. In shipping her belongings to my home before the wedding, most of the boxes were damaged and several precious heirlooms were lost, including her father's grandfather's binoculars. His 1978 Philips 070 transistor radio, however, arrived safely, so I set it out to bring it back to life after decades of muteness. I put in new batteries, opened it up to see if there were any loose connections to solder. I even tried percussive maintenance, said to work on such devices, smacking it sharply against a hard surface, and silence. We gave up and put it at the back of a desk drawer in our bedroom. 3 months later, after affixing the necessary signatures to our marriage license at the Beverly Hills courthouse, we returned home and, in the presence of my family, said our vows and exchanged rings. Being 9,000 kilometers from family, friends, and home, Jennifer was feeling amiss and very lonely. She wished her grandfather were there to give her away. She whispered that she wanted to say something to me alone, so we excused ourselves to the back of the house where we could hear music playing in the bedroom. However, we don't have a music system there, so we searched for laptops and iPhones and even opened the back door to check if the neighbors were playing music. We followed the sound to the printer on the desk, wondering absurdly if this combined printer, scanner, fax machine also included a radio. But no. At that moment, Jennifer shot me a look I haven't seen since the supernatural thriller The Exorcist startled audiences. That can't be what I think it is, can it? She said. She opened the desk drawer and pulled out her grandfather's transistor radio, out of which a romantic love song wafted. We sat in stunned silence for minutes. My grandfather is here with us, Jennifer said tearfully. I'm not alone. Shortly thereafter, we returned to our guests with the radio playing as I recounted the backstory. My daughter, Devon, who came out of her bedroom just before the ceremony began, added, I heard the music coming from your room just as you were about to start. The odd thing is that we were there getting ready just minutes before that time, sans music. Later that night, we fell asleep to the sound of classical music emanating from Walter's radio. Fittingly, it stopped working the next day and has remained silent ever since.
Oh.
Not so
That makes you
sweet.
teary.
I
That's
know.
really
The
sweet.
that and the last one you read too makes me like
Yeah.
emotional.
Hmm.
Like the friend. No.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
But yeah, some
I
some
love
cute
those.
ones to end on after the
Hmm.
creepy
Yeah.
mom look-alike and the
Yeah.
bad
Ugh.
doggy. So
Bad
scary.
doggy.
Bad
Yeah.
doggy. But yeah, so any skeptics out there, let us know if you've experienced
Hmm.
anything weird you can't explain, if it's changed your mind. We'd
Hmm.
love to hear it. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Girls Gone Spooky. And most importantly, stay spooky,
Stay
friends.
spooky. Bye.
Bye.